in-game item trading outside of games, and I do dare to say that it's going to be new multi-billion business within games in the future. So briefly about Social First, we are a Finnish startup. We started operations just last year. We are currently 14 people, mostly veterans of 10, 15, 20 years in the industry. And we are making our first game as this company, and it's going to be a cross-platform UGC social sandbox game with heavy elements in both in-game items trading and in general player-driven economy inside the game itself. So item trading is nothing new. Blockchain and Web3, which is kind of like the next big thing, at least last year, put it in the front and center, saying that gamers want to own the items in the games, they want to trade the items outside of games, and blockchain and Web3 and NFTs is the way to do that. I do beg to differ, because blockchain in general doesn't really bring anything that you wouldn't have with old technology anyways already. And players have already traded the in-game items outside of games for decades, at least for 20 plus years. Because if you know games like Runescape, for example, those players have been trading the in-game items from the party hats and all the other stuff for even thousands of dollars many, many years. Almost, well, over 20 years already. So, and they usually do that even against the explicit terms and services that forbid it. So players do want to do it even if it's not something that game developers would allow. So it is a booming gray market. I would say that it's worth already at least billions, if not tens of billions of dollars annually. And if you compare that to 200 billion annual worth of gaming industry, it is a significant increase to that. So allowing in-game item trading outside of games and making that white market would open up a really great new revenue source for game developers and publishers. And I do dare to say that it will happen in the near future, but it will happen without blockchain. So about the value of the gray market, nobody really knows, and there's a disclaimer that these are all totally unconfirmed numbers. But I've been asking around. And I've been asking around from industry veterans and experts from different companies, from Jagex, the maker of Runescape, ex-Jagex people, and other big companies. And some example numbers here. So CSGO, skin trading, that's worth around 300 million annually, but that's walled inside Steam. And if you saw news last week, it was the most expensive skin in CSGO that was sold for $400,000 just last week. So there is huge value there already. MMO RPG genre, some estimates put that to 5 to 8 billion annually. World of Warcraft gold trading is still a thing, 1 billion annually. And one of the most bold estimates I heard with discussing some experts was that up to 30 to 40% of the player spending in games is actually happening outside the games in various gray markets. One example of gray market, RuneScape, and these are just screenshots that I took from one site I went to for kind of like research purposes. I don't really play RuneScape anymore myself, but just doing research. So items listing with prices, rarities, descriptions, stuff like that. The experience was actually very much akin to a stuff like, I don't know, going to Zalando or Amazon or eBay or whatever. So you just put your items in shopping cart, you see the total amount, you can use PayPal, you can use credit card, but this is a gray site, so they are doing it illegally basically. Well, not basically, they are doing it illegally. And then I checked how's the customer support. So if I go to, I don't know, Zalando to buy shoes or whatever, I rarely get an actual person for the customer service. But here I checked the chat, and there was Lisa, probably not her real name. But anyways, Lisa, the support agent, and I started asking questions like, hello, I would like to buy items here, and is it safe? How does this take place? And how they work is that you pay the money for the items you selected, and then Lisa or someone else will meet you in the game and give you those items. So you have to trust them, you have to pay up front, and then hopefully someone will come to the game, meet you there, and give you the items. And that's really shady, and you can get scammed. Maybe not by these sites themselves, but it is like, yeah, gray market. And of course, yeah, you can't really never trust other sellers or other people in gray markets. Also, you give them your credit card data and stuff like that. And even in the game itself, someone might interfere and come to you in the game and try to scam you from the items that you just bought. And because this is against the terms of services, if you get caught by the developer or the publisher, you might get your account banned permanently. We have done that in our previous game because we don't want to allow that happening. And as a developer or publisher, if these things do take place and players do want to trade items, you don't benefit financially at all. But you have to spend resources to kind of like combat this, and then also do the customer support for players who actually got scammed on some gray site. And of course, unregulated trading can also hurt the game in many different ways. For example, people getting their hands into items that they are not supposed to get by that point in the game, so progression, monetization, all of that. Developers do, in a way, benefit from someone providing this gray market service, because players clearly do want to trade items outside of games for real money, not blockchain, but for real money. And people who trade items even outside of games, that does increase retention for those players, and it results in the more active community. So enter blockchain. So this was like, I don't know, a year ago, 2 years ago. Blockchain said that, yeah, hey, we will enable trading of crypto-based in-game items like NFTs and different tokens on less shady marketplaces. I would say not shady, but less shady. And developer would get a royalty from every trade, assuming that the trade would take place on a marketplace like OpenSea that would have actually listed the NFT's smart contract. And then there was also in blockchain the promise of interoperability of in-game assets between different games. So, okay, I don't know, let's say that I buy a sword in one game, I could use that sword in some other game. But anyone who knows anything about developing games knows that that's just a pipe dream, and it's not really going to happen kind of like in real world. Or if it would have a huge cost attached to it. And as last bullet point here, blockchain does not enable anything that you wouldn't already have with existing technologies and with real money. So one of the most important things for me as a gamer myself, as a game developer, is that myself and my company, we're making games for the 3.2 billion gamers out there, not for just few crypto bros. And gamers don't want blockchain. So anytime any big company like Team 17, Square Enix, other companies, they put out something about they're going to do blockchains or NFTs, there is immediate outrage from the players, and then these big companies have to backpedal and say, okay, maybe we're not going to do that anyways. And that's kind of like the thing that you, as a game developer, should always pay attention to. You can't shove something down your audience's throat. If they don't want it, don't try to force it on them. But if they do want to do something, do kind of like cater to that need and want from the audience. So again, gamers hate blockchain, but they do want to trade items outside of games. I think that's kind of like established. So the solution would be, at least one solution, would be centralized storefront for real money trading of in-game items. So basically a storefront into which any game could get integrated. So if you have a game about fast cars, players could sell and trade those cars in the marketplace, in the storefront. or if you have a fantasy game, then armor, swords, potions. If you have a cozy game, then maybe carrots, sofas, couches, whatnot. And those two items will be traded for real money, so not blockchain, but you can pay with PayPal, you can pay with credit card, and that happens outside the game, and you as a developer wouldn't need to be directly involved, so that would be a third-party service for you and your players. One important thing here is that users would be able to make immediate deposits to the storefront, but also withdraw real money. So if I don't know, if I get a expensive loot drop, so a magical sword in a game, I don't want it, I put it in the storefront to be sold. Anna-Kaisa here buys it for, I don't know, $100, then I can withdraw my $100 and buy pizza or buy sneakers or just spend it on some other game. And of course, the idea here would be that cut from every transaction for both the developer and the storefront would be something. But there's also kind of like strings attached for the storefront. So KYC, so know your customer, other different rules and regulations, and also escrow would be handled by the storefront. Because if you are handling millions of dollars of worth of assets or money of other people in your storefront, then there's regulations to follow. But basically the idea is very simple. So you have a game, player one here gets a, let's say again, magical sword in the game, doesn't want to keep it, so player one, P1 here, puts it in the storefront for sale, let's say for $10. Player two does want that sword, they don't even know who they are, the other players, but they just see, okay, there's a sword on sale for $10. Player two buys it and gets it in the game. And the money changes hands, so player two will pay the $10 to the storefront, and developer will take their cut, and the rest of the money goes to the player one. Very simple. This is done by dozens and dozens, hundreds of different websites every day, thousands of different websites every day, all across the world with different items, not in-game items, but different items. Let me just check what I have. Yeah. So this is kind of like more general, but if you do want to integrate real money items into your game, there's a few things that you have to be careful about. So do not break your in-game economy, progress, balance, stuff like that. And these things also are viable even if you don't allow real money trading yourself, but people are doing that in gray markets, so it's always important to take this into account as well. One thing is that, are you going to go with just visual items, or will be the functionality too, or utility? So is it just going to be like in CSGO, is it going to be just like skins for weapons, or is it actually going to be like special weapons that are more powerful than basic weapons, for example? But I would say that for actual proper games, the way to go is kind of like have maybe limited amount of those items, but not go into one-of-a-kind items like the crypto bros do. Plan your game to have 10 plus years of lifetime, because people do engage in the in-game economy if they see that there's continuation for that, and they can trade the items even like 5 years from today. And more items with lower price point means higher conversion rate and also more secondary sales. So you don't want to kind of like do a cash grab. You want to have this kind of like game economy running parallel to your own game, and it's more about volume than it is about high prices for single items. So, as a recap, gamers do want to trade their in-game items for real money. Those gray markets have been existing for at least 20-something years, as is evident from games like Runescape, for example. And the annual market size has to be around several billions, I would say more than 10 billion a year, but nobody really knows because you can't really like get data from the gray market sites. Blockchain's promise was to put this in-game item trading in the front and center, but gamers, myself included, I don't like blockchain, and I don't see that it would offer anything that you can't do with existing technology already and with real money as well. So never say never, but I would say that blockchain or Web3 is not going to break through in games in the short to mid term. So let's say at least in the next 5 years. Solution would be centralized real money storefront where players can easily trade items from different games and also withdraw funds if they want to kind of like cash out. There are a few sites like that already. They are not really like global. One is called Gamer Pay, for example, and those guys, I think it's a Danish company. I met those guys in Pocket Gamer London just this year. They are doing CSGO skin trading and also items from Rust, but they only operate mainly in Europe. But there's also some of them are very big companies that are doing stuff like this as well. And there are going to be some storefronts for real money trading, I would say within the next couple of years. And I do predict that it will be multi-billion game market of digital assets when that happens. But when exactly will that happen, it does remain to be seen. I was actually quite fast. I'm not sure if there's like a prize for that, but at least we have time for questions.
If we can discuss about this a lot. So yeah, again, if there's any questions, just raise your hand and the mic will be brought to you. I want to ask, I'm not sure if you are sharing that information yet, but how does your company kind of come to this trend? What are you right now making?
Well, we are making cross-platform social sandbox MMO game. So we have been making similar game in our previous company, so the core team is quite familiar with that kind of like approach. And what we saw in our previous game was that the players did want to trade in-game quite a lot, and many players also did that illegally outside the game as well. And then last year, when Web3 and blockchain was all the hype, we did look seriously into it, kind of like trying to kind of like learn about it.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, yeah, it was the same thing that we had seen happening with existing technology and with real money already like 20 years. So we didn't really get that much hyped about it. You still thought that we are a blockchain company. We are not. But yeah, we do know that players do want to trade items.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of like something that we would want to have in our future game as well. But the thing is that it would need a big enough company to operate the whole thing, kind of like Steam or Amazon or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because if you do sell items and you do kind of like have people's money on escrow, you have to have the kind of like banking regulations to follow and stuff like that. And if you're a Finnish indie company, you don't want to do that yourself. So we are hoping that some big company will kind of like break the ice and do that first.
Like we heard from Lena that it's a jungle out there too.
Yeah, but I do know, and we are in close discussions with a couple of big companies that are already doing that. But let's see when they have it ready enough to come out.
Yeah. So it's gonna be interesting if it would be, for instance, in Steam or in an Epic's own store.
Yeah, I mean Steam is very walled, so they want to keep everything inside there.
Yeah.
And you can't really cash out unless you do it like semi illegally outside. They do allow that as well because they see the benefits. But yeah, like legit storefront by Epic or some other company, that would be, yeah. I bet it's happening in a few years.
Yeah. Questions? There is one from Tatu in the front. There is already Mike. Sorry, I didn't see that. Just go ahead.
Yeah, so my question to you is in terms of like scaling globally, because you said you don't like blockchain, because have you ever like tried to send money from Europe to Africa, and how was the experience for you? Because when you talk about like trading in-game items, are you only looking at Europe or America, or are you looking at the world globally?
No, it should be global. Especially, it should be global. So I'm not saying that, I don't know, let's say if you would be from Africa, I would be from Europe, Anakaza would be from, I don't know, like China. We wouldn't be kind of like sending money like between us. There would be a storefront, and if I would I was selling some item. It doesn't matter if I'm in Europe, you're in Africa, she's from China, because everything happens in the storefront. So you pay to the storefront. I would get my money from the storefront. Similar if you would put something on sale on Amazon, for example, or Etsy, or services like that. So there's not like direct involvement between the traders, between the seller and the buyer. The storefront handles that.
Yep. And then another question here.
This is going to be a hard one.
No, this is a curious one. I might think of a hard one after this one, but very interesting. You probably looked into this. I watch a lot of CSGO, and there's like 1 billion skin marketplaces. Like, are any of those Valves sanctioned? Do they do like some cooperation there, or is it just a gazillion skin stores?
To my understanding, they're not sanctioned or kind of like, not. You might want to check out a site called GamerPay, and they are kind of like semi-sanctioned, I guess, because they do have the ability to kind of like even like scrub your data from Steam to kind of like check your items there, and then you can put your items on sale, CSGO skins on sale on their site, and someone else can buy them, and that's like real money happening there. But even they are not like global and only semi-sanctioned.
Mm-hmm. There's another question here.
Thank you. Very interesting. I also have two questions, maybe. One is, if we're talking about virtual item trading in real money, what's the regulations in Finland? Does the tax authorities recognize incomes from the virtual goods capably filed for income tax, for example? Because that's a major issue in Korea and where I'm from, actually. There has been a long discussions on this, how to recognize virtual goods values in real money. Is it even possible? Is it taxable, etc.? And the second question is, what if there's a currency fluctuation, economy fluctuations happen? Let's say a game made a balance patch, and all of a sudden they introduce higher items. So once previously high-tiered items now got the second tier, and therefore less value, then therefore the investment in the real money that was involved to purchasing those items now devalued. Thus the companies will be responsible for this? How would that be regulated or resolved? What's your thought on this?
Okay, so disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer or a law expert, but this is very interesting. So there's definitely kind of like tax things to consider as a individual if you sell your items. I think that it wouldn't really differ from other things. For example, in Finland, I guess you can sell services or items even up to until a certain limit or amount of money without taxes. But then if you go over the threshold, then you do have to do your taxes for as well. But if you sell stuff in the flea market, for example, you don't have to pay taxes for that unless you make a certain amount of money, maybe like so.
Something like that goes,
Yeah.
yes.
But one very interesting discussion about is kind of like the ownership of digital items. I had a pleasure of meeting Kelvin Low. He's a university professor of law in Singapore University. And we met last year, and we have been discussing ever since about, because he's kind of like especially in property law, and digital assets are properties as such as well, but the law isn't really up to date regarding those. So if I sell you a sword in, I don't know, Diablo or whatever, what do you own? What did I own before I sold? Because it's not like physical sword, so it's like piece of code somewhere. It's not in my computer and not in yours. Where is it? And all that kind of like, it's like, I don't know, 2 more sessions at least to go through. The second question was? Market fluctuation. The question was about what about market fluctuation. So if you buy something from me and then it goes down in value because the game developer did something, that's really not, I would say, the storefront's issue. There's just a marketplace who kind of like facilitates the sales. That is a problem in some games, at least for some people, but kind of like speculating with the assets and stuff like that is also kind of like, it drives the market as well. For example, like one of my favorite games is EVE Online, but I don't play it because I don't have time to play it properly. But there the whole economy is run by the players. And stuff that can happen is, for example, that CCP, the developers, they just nerf some of the bombers in the game, or they kind of like buff some fighters in the game, and that kind of like changes the whole game ecosystem at least slightly. And same goes for many tradable card games, like in the real world as well. I mean, they publish new cards that are kind of like better than the previous cards, and then what happens with your collection? It's
Happens already.
yeah.
Yeah. More questions? There comes the hard question now.
Okay, yeah.
Not really hard, just interested in your thoughts because, again, you probably looked into it quite a bit. We kind of already went to the topic already because I was curious, also CSGO being as familiar with that. Some of the skins can be incredibly valuable, if I'm not wrong.
It was $400,000, the last one last week.
Yeah, so what? And Valve just has to follow what's going on in there because also, I don't know, I guess the marketplaces have built trust because people are buying and they are established and so on and so on. But you might buy a skin for 400K and then Valve might be like, yeah, people really like this skin, so let's flood the market with them, and suddenly it's worthless. Like, this can technically, I guess, happen. But I guess Valve is really careful of like balancing this stuff, and in the end, they just want people to buy as many keys to the cases as possible. Like.
But I mean, then that's the one key that one reason why I would, as a game developer, I would prefer a centralized storefront that does all the regulations and stuff like that, so people don't get scammed. And those sort of things. This real story that I heard, Finnish father and his son, they sold a CSGO skin trading at the parking lot of Prisma to some other people because they met outside the game in the real world, and the transaction took place there for real money. But I mean, people go to those lengths to sell stuff that you could just do if there would be a third-party service. But if nobody else is going to make it, I will make it myself one day.
Yeah. I mean, one question that has to do with a lot, like we've been bombarded these questions in games for a long time, but how about like underage players, like whose responsibility, like that's one of the reasons you want to have the storefront, I guess. That.
Yes, then again, of course, you can't buy anything in App Store, for example, if you're underage because you don't have a credit card, but
it happens a lot.
Yeah, it happens a lot anyways, but so you can't really kind of like go around that. If parents do give the credit card access to the underage children, then you as a developer or you as a Amazon or Zalando or whatever, you can't really control that.
Yeah. I mean, like if you have trading with real money, it can become like a stock market also, like what the problems that Roblox had.
Yeah, there's like speculating there, definitely, which is kind of like, especially kids could kind of like try to gamble it a bit too much. So it's, again, centralized storefront would be better in that way, that sense as well.
Yeah, to put all the stuff that Lena was talking about to someone else's shoulders.
Yeah, and then they get their 5% or whatever for that.
For that work, indeed. All right, that's all the talks for today.